I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me.
Well, sometime recently I went to the doctor because my back was hurting, and I had an x-ray. And when in the process of getting the x-ray, I was talking to the x-ray technician and about spirituality and things like that. And she asked me, what am I most afraid of? And I said, I'm really afraid of being vulnerable. And she said, I can see right through you. I just love that little pause in there. I'm like, oh, this one really bombed. And it may have really bombed. And I guess I had to be really vulnerable to share the only joke that I could find about vulnerability on the internet. Well, during his 27 years of imprisonment, Mandela suffered much physical and emotional pain and abuse. Yet when he was released from prison and elected as the first black president of South Africa, he chose to pursue a policy of forgiveness and reconciliation instead of seeking revenge against his former oppressors. In one instance, you might remember, Mandela invited the man who was his chief jailer during his imprisonment, Crystal Brand, to be at his presidential inauguration. Mandela embraced Brand and forgave him for his actions, saying, "If I don't forgive him, who will?" Brand was deeply moved by Mandela's forgiveness and became one of his biggest supporters. He went on to work for Mandela's government and helped implement many policies to reunite South Africa's divided society. Celebrating triumphs and suffering through many setbacks, the two men formed an unlikely bond that would endure until Mandela's death. And this is the book written by Brand. So, vulnerability. So what is vulnerability? I think to be vulnerable refers to expose or being exposed to the open possibility of harm. Vulnerability often involves uncertainty, often involves some element of risk and the potential for adverse outcomes, which can cause us to feel uncomfortable or afraid. Perhaps Mandela made himself vulnerable by choosing forgiveness instead of seeking revenge. Through Mandela's act of vulnerability in forgiving his former jailer, he not only found peace within himself, but he opened the door to reconciliation and healing for a divided nation. His forgiveness is such a powerful example of how vulnerability and forgiveness can transform an individual and transform an entire society. Many people believe that vulnerability is a weakness. Anybody ever felt that? I certainly felt that when I told that joke earlier. And many people try to avoid vulnerability at all costs. As a result, what happens? We put up walls. We hide our emotions. We hide behind a brick wall, trying to have people perceive that we're strong and invincible. But what if vulnerability is a superpower? What if embracing your vulnerability can lead to super strength? What if vulnerability can lead to resilience and to connection with others? Yeah? So you might say, well, how do I know if vulnerability, being vulnerable, is going to help me? Well, I have some things that you might consider that show up for you in your life if you have the opportunity to empower your vulnerability. For example, you might have difficulty creating quality relationships with other people. You might struggle with expressing your feelings. How many of us feel embarrassed sometimes when we cry, or when we're hurting, or when we're afraid? We might tend to not take risks if we don't show our vulnerability. We might have difficulty accepting criticism and feedback. We might tend to hold grudges and hold on to resentment. We might even not be able to deal with change and uncertainty. We might have difficulty dealing with current challenges and setbacks. Some even find that they are more apt to engage in destructive behaviors and things like substance abuse or self-harm. And even you can notice that if you are afraid or if you are hesitant about exploring yourself, exploring your own spirituality, exploring your own vulnerability, if you have difficulty with experiencing personal growth. So today we're going to look at vulnerability. I'm going to share some stories of some people that you know who experienced vulnerability and share it with the world, and people who made a change and are making a change in the world through their vulnerability. And you'll learn 5 different things that you can use to build your superpower of vulnerability. Mandela chose forgiveness and reconciliation instead of seeking revenge. Mandela, in order to do that, had to move past the idea of being right. Right? He had to move past the idea that this person, these people who hurt and abused him aren't as good as he is. He had to face the fact that these are people too, and they're people that are possibly doing the best that they can. To truly forgive someone, we need to move beyond the part of us that says, I'm right. Right? I'm right, and therefore I'm not going to forgive anyone because I'm not going to give them something for the way they treated me. I'm going to give them hate and distancing instead of love. And besides, I'm a better person than that person. Right? Ever feel that way? It's like, and that's what keeps us from forgiving. Forgiveness is probably the most powerful tool that we can use. And it was so much a part of Jesus' message and Buddha's message and all these teachers that teach forgiveness, and yet we hang on to it, right? Because our ego feels like it gets some kind of false. It doesn't feel like it gets false strength. It does get false strength from not forgiving. Because I'm going to stand tough. I'm not going to forgive anybody. I know that I'm right. Oh, well, that feels fun to do that. And there is some enjoyment that we get from that perceived power, right? And that's why we do it often. But the key today is to let that go. To not operate from our ego, but to operate from our spirit, from the presence of love that's within us. Are you ready to do that? Yeah. So the first thing that we want to do to develop our superpower of authenticity or vulnerability is to forgive ourselves and others. Just say it together. I am courageous and authentic and I honor my vulnerability as a gift to myself and the world. I love what Emerson said. He said, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Wow, to be yourself, right? To conform to this egocentric world that tells us that we have to be a certain way to be popular or to be right or to be powerful. Michelle Obama, anybody read her book, Becoming? Yeah. Wow, if you haven't read this, you have to read this book. She's in her book, Becoming, she talks about her personal experiences to connect with people on a deeper level. Michelle shares in this book about her childhood, her struggles with infertility, and her challenges that she faced as the first black first lady. And one of the most powerful parts of this book is when Michelle opens up about her experience with miscarriage and fertility treatments. She writes, we were trying to get pregnant, and it wasn't going well. We had one pregnancy test come back after another, and one finally came back that was positive. And we both let go of every worry, and we were swooning with each other with joy. But a couple weeks later, I had a miscarriage, which left me physically uncomfortable and cratered the optimism that we had. I believe that Michelle's decision to share her struggle, her story, is powerful because it helps to break the stigma that we have about infertility and miscarriage. By speaking out about her challenges, her experience, she shows others that you can do the same. You can tell your story. You can be who you are. You can be vulnerable, and it's okay. Wow. Her ability to share created a safe space for other women and men to talk about these issues. Michelle shows us that vulnerability is a source of strength. It's a way to connect with others and inspire change. And isn't that what we're really here to do? Don't we all want a better world, a more loving world, a more truthful world? And when we share our stories, it opens us up and it opens other people up. So we can be the fullest that we can be, and so can other people. So the second thing that we can do to develop our superpower of vulnerability is to share our story. And I must say, there are people who share their stories too much, right? And I know your mind went there, and so I just thought I would be vulnerable and point it out that, yes, there are some people who share too much, right? So you don't want to be one of those people, right? You want to use your ability to share your story with people that you can actually inspire. People that are going to go, wow, I can be transformed as I be myself, tell my story, be sincere, be honest, and be vulnerable. I love what Pema Chodron wrote. Pema Chodron, you might know, is an American Buddhist nun and an amazing author. And she wrote, when we are willing to stay even for a moment with uncomfortable energy, we gradually learn not to fear it. Wow, so powerful. Because we're taught that you don't want to feel uncomfortable. You don't want to share your fears. You don't want to experience difficulty. And Pema Chodron is telling us, be with it. Be with the pain. Feel the pain. There's a great story about that by Glennon Doyle, who's a best-selling author and speaker, and she became known for her amazingly powerful messages of vulnerability, authenticity, and self-love. In her book, untamed, Glennon shares her journey of leaving behind the expectations and the demands of others to be true to herself. One of the most amazing moments in this book is when Glennon shares her experience of addiction and recovery. She writes, "I was addicted to alcohol and drugs for 10 years before I finally hit the bottom and got sober. My addiction was a way of numbing myself to the pain and the trauma that I had experienced in my life." Wow. Since Glennon's decision to do this, she's inspired so many people to be able to share the difficulties that they have in life. How powerful is that? To admit that you've got a drug problem or an alcohol problem. You know, because we're so afraid sometimes to share our vulnerability, thinking people aren't going to like us or they're going to see less of us. And that's, again, it's just a trick of the ego. The truth is, when we share at the right time, in an honest and sincere way, the issues that we have, it empowers others because they go, wow, I can relate to that. I too have issues that I'm working on. And when somebody else is vulnerable, it allows me to show my superpower of vulnerability. And she taught others to embrace the truth of who they are, even if it's against societal expectations. Glennon's story shows us that vulnerability is a source of strength, a way to connect with others and inspire change. And when we are vulnerable, when we are compassionate and understanding, and we share our experiences, we create more compassion. We help to create a compassionate world where everyone feels seen and heard. So the third thing that we can do to develop our superpower of vulnerability is to share our feelings and admit mistakes. You know that Richard Rohr is one of my favorite spiritual teachers, and he writes, it's only when we're willing to be vulnerable and take risks that we enter into our deepest gifts and realize our full potential. Wow. The fourth thing we can do to embrace our superpower is to be a voice of change in the world. You might know Laverne Cox. Anybody know who she is? She's a well-known actress and advocate for LGBTQ plus rights, and has used her experiences of vulnerability and discrimination to become a powerful voice for change. She grew up as a transgender woman, and she faced immense challenges and discrimination from society. But instead of hiding her identity, instead of hiding who she is, she used it as a superpower. In 2014, Laverne became the first openly transgender person to be nominated for an Emmy Award in her role in the hit series Orange is the New Black. But instead of using that platform solely to promote her success, she used it as an opportunity to speak about the challenges that transgender people face. When she received the award in 2014, she said, "I stand here this evening because I'm free. Finally, I am free. And I don't know what to do with this freedom, but I will find a way to use it. I will use it to keep myself accountable and to help create a world that is even more free." Wow. Laverne's story shows us again that vulnerability is not a weakness. It's a strength. We can create more compassion in the world by embracing our vulnerabilities and sharing our stories. And we can make a difference because we can be an example in the world of how speaking for what we believe in and the challenges that we have can help to change the world, to make a difference in the world. So the fourth thing that we can do, I said it before, is to develop our superpower. Your superpower of vulnerability is to be a voice of change in the world, to stand up for what you believe, to stand up when something's not right, to stand up against discrimination, to stand up against prejudice, to stand up against hate, and to stand for love. Brene Brown wrote, "Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change." You might recognize J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. And she's spoken openly about her struggles with depression and the challenges that she faced early in her writing career. Before the success of Harry Potter, Rowling was a struggling single mother living on welfare. She had gotten divorced and she was trying to raise her daughter while also pursuing her dream of being a writer. During this time, she was diagnosed with clinical depression and even contemplated suicide. She felt like a failure and was too ashamed to tell anyone about her struggles. Eventually, Rowling realized that her vulnerability was not a weakness, but a strength. She used her experiences with depression and adversity to shape the character of Harry Potter and the themes in her books. She said, "Depression is the most unpleasant thing I've ever experienced. It's that absence of being able to envision that you will ever be cheerful again. The absence of hope, that very deadened feeling, which is so very different from being sad. Sad hurts, but it's a healthy feeling. It's a necessary thing to feel sad, but depression is very different." Through her vulnerability, Rowling was able to create an amazing, beloved series that's inspired many people, millions of people around the world. And she continues to speak openly about her challenges with depression and mental health, and has become an advocate for those who are struggling in silence. And the fifth thing we can do is to realize that our vulnerability is a strength. These individuals have used their vulnerability to be a strength, to be able to inspire themselves to be more powerful. And their message to us is, how can we use our vulnerability to be different, to change, and to be a model of change in the world? So I've got some questions for you. And the first one is, are you willing to be vulnerable enough to forgive someone? Are you ready to move past that part of you that wants to say, "I'm right"? Are you willing to move past that part of you that says, "Well, I'm a better person than this person, so I'm not going to forgive them"? Really, forgiveness only helps one person. Do you know who that is? Right? Sometimes we think if I'm holding a grudge or I'm holding anger against someone that they get it. They don't have a clue. right? They might think, well, that person is kind of shut down or isn't themselves, or, the person is holding the judgment or might keep themselves back from being totally present with the person. But in truth, the only person that we hurt when we don't forgive is ourselves. Forgiveness is a tool that we can use to strengthen ourselves, to empower ourselves. And the second question I have is, are you willing to be vulnerable and tell your story in a way that is appropriate? Are you willing to tell your story? To use your story as an inspiration to help others? And number 3, are you willing to share your feelings and admit your mistakes? Wow, we're so much taught not to share our feelings in this society, and we're so taught not to share our vulnerability or to admit that we make mistakes. But there's something that's really freeing about it when we do, because we allow other people to admit their mistakes as well, and we make that connection. And fourthly, are you willing to make a change? Are you willing to change yourself? Are you willing to, as Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world? Are you willing to be that change? Are you willing to, sort of pull up your pants or your dress and say, you know what, I am not going to stand for prejudice. I'm not going to stand for anger. I'm not going to stand, when somebody is being unreasonable, to stand up to them and say, you know what, that doesn't work for me. Are you willing to be a voice for change in the world? And lastly, will you use your vulnerability as your superpower? Because you were born with this amazing power to influence the world, to be a powerful catalyst in the world for love and peace and joy. And will you look at your vulnerability and how you're vulnerable and use that to make a difference in the world? I am courageous. Let's say it together. I am courageous and authentic, and I honor my vulnerability as a gift to myself and to the world. And so it is. So, Robin, come on up if you would, and let's begin to prepare ourselves for a few moments of meditation and contemplation.
Okay. I invite you to let my words be your words. Spirit, I am Spirit, Holy Spirit lives in me. Spirit, I am Spirit, free to fly. Free to be oneness. I live in oneness. Divine wisdom works through me. Oneness. I live in oneness. Free to shine, free to be. Open, I am open. I freely give, and I receive. Free to love,
invite you to close your eyes and bring your attention and your awareness to your breath. Breathing in, breathing into the freeness that you are. Breathing in. Imagine that the breath that you breathe touches every cell and every space in your body, all the places in your mind. Breathing in. Giving thanks for the beautiful expression of spirit that you are. A presence that is free to be. A presence that is free to love. A presence that is free to be vulnerable. Free to forgive. Free to live with integrity. Free to live from your heart. Free to live unencumbered. Free to hold love. Free to be the presence of love. Free to be the presence of Spirit of God, of peace. Breathing in and breathing out. Take that journey to your heart. And imagine that you can look out from your heart at the world and behold a world that is in the same way free. Breathing in and breathing out. And let's just take a few moments in the silence to behold ourselves with love. Bringing your awareness back to your breath. Bringing your awareness back to this moment. Imagine that you now have a different perception of yourself, of the world. In a sense, you can see clearly now who you are. You see the world and all life with new eyes as you go forth to share your gift of vulnerability and love with the world. And so it is. I invite you to open your eyes, bring your awareness back to this moment. So I invite you now to take your... Boy, I don't know what to say, so I won't say anything. It's often the best thing to do, right? So I invite you to prepare your love offerings, your tithes, and your gifts to Unity on Maui. And as you hold them, to perceive the energy that they are, the energy of and the vibration of creativity, right? That's kind of what this is. This is a vibration of creativity that allows us to do so many things. And one thing it does is allow us to continue doing our amazing work here at Unity on Maui. And so I want to thank you for sharing your energy of prosperity with us. Helps us to keep this amazing building together and to pay our staff and to keep the grounds up as well as they are. How do you think about our grounds? They look pretty good, don't they? Have you looked? And a big contributor to that is Brad back here. Does so much to help us keep our grounds beautiful. And Kate does also. Kate just walked in the door. And and Kealoha, who can't be here today, but we know that she's just an amazing woman. So thank you for your gifts. I invite you to hold them and to hold them with love and to see them as these gifts of creativity that's moving through Unity on Maui and inspiring us and giving us ideas and truth and love and all these amazing things so that we can continue doing what we're doing. So as you hold your gifts, let's pray and affirm together our prayer and our affirmation of prosperity by saying it together. Let's say it together. Together. Through a grateful, giving heart, my mind and life overflow with the abundance of God's all-providing, infinite supply. And so it is. Namaste. So thank you, loving Spirit, for these gifts that have come to us in love. We hold them, we bless them, and we give thanks for them, knowing that they're moving through this ministry. And through these gifts, we connect with our truth, with our light, with our life. And we share this message with our family, with our friends, with our community, and with the world. And we behold a world that's filled with love, filled with light, filled with peace, and with joy. And so it is. Namaste. Thank you. Speaking of being filled with joy, now that's really being filled with joy. Because that is joy. All right, just have a couple announcements today. Let's see what we got here. Well, thank you for signing up to bring flowers. This amazing, I don't know what you call it.
Palms.
Palm frond, thank you. Kealoha made this for last week, but it's still surviving today, and it just looks amazing. I'm going to tell you more about that in just a minute. So you can sign up to bring flowers. There's a sign-up sheet in the back. Just put your name down and what day you want to bring flowers. And if you'd like us to donate them or to mention that they're donated to somebody or that they're there to honor somebody, write that down too. And we'll make a note of it. And oh my goodness, Adam, light play. Come on up here, Adam. It was all I could do to not tell Adam about this ahead of time, but
He did say, "Are you coming tomorrow?" Check that.
But we want to honor you for who you are and what you bring to Unity on Maui, and for what a fabulous job Adam did last month when he was the platform person. Yeah? Did you enjoy?
Yeah.
You know, we have to be careful though when we honor him too much and appreciate him too much, because he can really go over the top, right? He, like me, has no filters, right? And I can appreciate the fact that you behold the Christ of no filters in you.
Now, Messi, the clown in me throws a pie in the face of the clown.
See what I mean? It just goes to prove it right there. So we'd like to give you this beautiful lei, Adam, as appreciation for who you are. Thank you. Notice I didn't give him a microphone. All right, so Mike Fleenor arranges a number of social activities for us, and coming up, there is a Coastal Land Trust hike that is next Saturday, I believe. And if you're interested in going on that hike, contact Mike. He'd love to have you join him and the rest of that group on that hike. And, speaking of these palm fronds, Kealoha, who made this arrangement, is going to teach a class in how to do that. And it's free or for a love offering, and it's going to be April 29th from 2 to 4 p.m. right here at Unity on Maui. And you can just show up and you can learn how to create something as amazing as this. I'm thinking, like Christmas next year, right? I can hang your decorations on there and your lights, and Kealoha's going, no, not so much. All right, so anyway, that'll be fun if you're interested in doing that. And I want to also remind you that there's a concert on the 23rd of April at 2 o'clock at St. Anthony Church, Catholic Church, and they're titled in What a Wonderful World. And many people who come to Unity are going to be in this amazing performance. So there's actually a couple flyers in the back if you're interested in finding out more about that. And we get to do some spring cleaning. Woo! Some time ago, the amazing housekeeper we had left. And so she left a bunch of piles of dust here and there and everywhere. Not intentionally. She got them when she was here, but since she left, they've gathered. And so we thought it'd be a great thing to get a group of people together to wash windows, to clean window seals, mop the floor, and just do some other things to really spruce us up, clean the bathroom, and other things. So if you'd like to be a part of that, we're doing that on Sunday, May 7th. I'm giving you plenty of notice. And we do ask that you bring your own cleaning supplies and mops and sponges or whatever you have to help us do that, so we can keep this sacred place clean. So thank you for doing that in advance. And next week, my talk is titled Unlocking the Door to Mindfulness Through the Power of Prayer. And, I've discovered myself that this is what I do. I pray in a way that sets my mind and spirit in a place where I can be mindful. And so I want to share with you that technique so you can use it yourself. A lot of times we practice prayer, and then we do meditation, and we practice mindfulness, right? But what I'm going to do next week is show you how you can combine the two of them to amplify the experience of both. So that'll be happening right here next Sunday at 10 o'clock. And if you liked the talk today and you're thinking, it should be great if I could remember some of this stuff tomorrow, which I hope you think about things like that, because I'm hoping that I do it so that you practice it. But to help you, I've created a summary that I call Walk Your Talk. It's available in the back. It's on pink paper, and feel free to take it home, and It'll help you to remember what we talked about today so you can practice it. All right, then. I think that is it for the moment. Anything else?
Oh,
Okay, then. Why don't we stand?
all right.
Take a deep breath, and we'll say the prayer for protection together, and then we'll join together in singing the peace song. So for ourselves and for the world, let's pray together the prayer for protection, which begins, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. God bless you. Thank you for being here today. Blessings to you out in Facebook land.